It's easy to get stuck in a box, or mentally trapped, when a routine goes on for too long. So, in an effort to rewire our brains and start thinking outside of the box, again, we went for a road trip. For years, I had dreamed of exploring Highway 395, starting at Lake Tahoe's Emerald Bay and making our way south to a little lake off the beaten path called Convict Lake. With a perfect weather window and just enough time over a long weekend, we packed up the van, stocked the fridge with all sorts of goodies, and loaded our Oru Lake kayaks. Our first morning on the road was early, arriving at Emerald Bay for the goal of a sunrise paddle. Underestimating the time it would take to walk to the water from Eagle Falls, we arrived just after sunrise. Setting up the kayaks in under 10 minutes, we were on the water and headed for the island centered in the bay. I was blown away at the clarity of the water in Lake Tahoe. The water was so clear, we found a sunken ship 30 or more feet under the surface of the water. Pinching myself back to reality, Kristin and I headed back for a bite to eat in our next destination, the east shore of Lake Tahoe, for a sunset paddle among the rocky shoreline. After a stellar first day, we were already feeling the benefits of this road trip. The mental reset was beginning, and we were ready to step outside of our box. We were feeling refreshed. Arriving at Twin Lakes, just outside of Bridgeport, California, in the early morning, we pulled out the kayaks from the back of the van and paddled all morning. The lake was gorgeous. Still water with a view of jagged peaks in the backdrop. Among those peaks are a few classic rock climbing routes that we'll have to return to for another day. By being in the van and paddling every day, we have changed our routine. Instead of waking up and sitting behind the computer, we are immersed in sunlight, taking in the ambient sounds. One of the stops I was looking forward to most was Owen's River. While the name may sound a bit daunting, the water is practically flat as it winds through the grasslands towards Owen's Lake, a mile away. A few years back, I had stopped at this river and told myself I would return to do something on it. The place was far too gorgeous not to. So, here we are, ready to pedal down the winding Owens River at sunset. We were on our last full day of the trip, but wanted to make the most of it. Waking before sunrise and eager for a morning of pampering, we headed for the hot springs. Bouncing down yet another dirt road, we landed in a parking lot and quickly headed for the wood-planked path towards our soaking paradise. Dipping a toe, then sinking into the hot spring, we were in heaven. Enjoying coffee and water, we sat together and chatted, making time for each other, listening to stories and talking about the future. Our busy lives had distracted us from what really mattered, each other. Taking in this reset, slowing down, appreciating the innate beauty often overlooked. Our last evening was spent lakeside, reading a book, paddling, getting sunburned, and taking time for the present. If we had not made this road trip, we would have remained in our routine, stuck in a box. However, we committed to making this happen, thankfully. As the night faded into an explosion of a sunset, the creativity was at an all-time high. After seeing the Milky Way high in the sky last night, I had the idea of putting fairy lights in the clear kayaks and going for a night paddle. Floating atop the water felt wrong. It was dark. Yet, the light from the kayaks made it so we could see into the water. It felt as though we were floating among the stars. While the trip was originally a dream a few years back, it has now become a reality. Breaking down the walls and stepping outside of the box, we were able to shift our perspective and sink into what really matters, each other. After hours of floating on the water, paddling into sunsets and sunrises, the wounds from our daily grind have been healed. For now, each breath is filled with life and clarity is ever present. I just hope the next trip isn't years away.